Hello, everyone. It's Heather from Magnificent Mommas. We are joined here today with an awesome author. I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Aura Marquez, and my debut novel is called V.
V, that's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. So here, I'll show the cover.
Yes.
That right there.
Oh, I like it. She's pretty. Kind of got a similar hairstyle going on, too.
And then that's like the back little thing. So V is about a Chicana autistic queer vampire based off of like me and my life. I always tell people if I had been turned into a vampire, maybe this would be my life. And she was turned at 40 against her will and is like trying to navigate being a vampire. Being a human was never easy because of being autistic. Being a vampire is not easy now. And she's just like trying to get it all figured out. And I got tired of reading. I love vampire novels. And I got tired of reading about teenage vampires. So I really wanted to write a middle-aged vampire who is still trying to figure stuff out. But I don't feel weird about like reading it and thinking I'm reading about 15-year-olds.
Thing, like, I love sci-fi and fantasy, and ever since like the Vampire Diaries and Twilight and stuff like that, it's like they're all so young.
Yeah.
Like whether it's the vampires in stories or whether it's the shifter stories, they're all 18, maybe a little bit younger, you know. And
yeah, if you're lucky, they're in their 20s, and I'm like, okay, well, at least they're legal.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's just nuts, but I totally get where you're coming from. So I gotta ask, you said she was autistic in human form. Does she have any of the tendencies in vampire form?
She does. So like somebody once questioned that. They were like, that's weird. How can a vampire be autistic? Well, and it's like, well, first off, vampires aren't real. But
I mean, you never know.
Everything's
possible.
That's true. But if Stephanie Meyer can make her vampire sparkly, and I can make mine autistic. But I myself am diagnosed autistic. So are my two of my children. I have 3 kids. It's the way that our brain is formed. It's the way that the receptors in our brain work. And so it's like somebody who is born with brown eyes and someone who's born with blue eyes. I'm born with an autistic brain, and someone is born with a neurotypical brain, or, you know, any other type of disability that you may have. So to me, if you are autistic when you're human and you get turned into a vampire, well, that's not going to change your brain. That's not going to change how your brain is formed or your neurotype. So you would still be you'd still be autistic. And in the book, it explores that a lot. That's a big part of it. My whole life have people don't get me. I was bullied as a kid really badly because I was different, because I would stim, because I was really blunt, because I didn't show emotion, all that kind of stuff. I taught myself how to act neurotypical by masking, and then developed really extreme depression and anxiety. And now when I tell people that I'm autistic, they're like, well, you don't look autistic. I'm like, no matter what I do, it's like, it's not.
You can't look a certain way. I mean.
Yeah. And so I really wanted to write a book that explored that, but I didn't want it. I love, like you, I love fantasy, urban fantasy, sci-fi, like that's my thing. And I'm like, you don't see that in those kinds of books. You see it in his like fiction, like realistic fiction, where you follow someone who, you know, is doing this life journey with who they are and stuff. And I really wanted to explore this person, her disability, but she's a vampire. And so, yeah.
I think that's awesome because I feel like in so many like sci-fi fantasy type books, even older ones, they don't really show the differences. I mean, they show it in the aspect of, you know, there's vampires and werewolves and whatnot, but actually different, like how an autistic vampire. I mean, what about like an ADHD werewolf or a mermaid that has no legs? I mean,
yeah, like anything. And that's, I think, something that the genre definitely glosses over is you don't see disability in the genre. And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense because they once were human. They came from humans. So why wouldn't you see representation and diversity within this world?
Yeah, I agree completely.
And then going along with that, so like all my main characters are BIPOC, all my main characters are queer, and it isn't like oh, I'm gonna like shove this in your face. That's how it is in my life. Like growing up, everyone that was around me, because I live in a like 80% Latina community, everyone was Latina, like it, and that's how I grew up. And I've grown up reading books where everybody is white, or everybody is straight, or everybody is cisgendered,
and so it's not like that.
Yeah, and it's like, so I wanted to represent the kind of environment that I have always known within a book, because I don't see that represented.
I agree completely. That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, stepping outside the box and representing all of that, not just, you know, the autism, but the LB, I'm going to mess it up.
It's okay. LGBT. You can be LGBT.
There's a lot of letters and stuff there right now.
So I got it
perfect the other day.
And it's so, because it can, let's see, if we do the full one, it's like LGBTQIA2S+.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot for somebody to remember all of that. And I mean, I don't mean it in a disrespectful way at all, so please don't think that.
Oh, no.
But like, just remembering it and wording it right, I guess, can be. But
no, I get it. It's a lot. I mean, I know a ton of people who there was like, wait, how do you say it again? And I appreciate, you know, the consideration and you're being respectful. And it's like, that's a lot to remember.
It is. My brain's kind of on overload right now anyway, so we're going to chalk it up to that, because normally I'd get it with like no issue. Maybe not the AI 2 plus all that, but the regular I would normal get. So I get that completely. So your experiences, your belief system, that type of thing is what inspired you to write this and inspired you to think outside the box. But in the same time, it's still inside the box because it's life for millions of people.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing has been like finding my audience, though. I first, in my mind, I thought this was like a romance book in my head. And that's how I like put it out there. And romance readers did not like it.
Oh, no. Oh, that's sad.
And
probably not so open-minded, maybe.
Well, they said it was not hot enough, like not spicy enough. And that's honestly, that's not my, I don't write like that. Like, and to me, there's one romance that's like a romance relationship. And then there are two platonic relationships that are also like very rooted in love and tenderness. And so to me, all of that is romance.
Yeah.
But people wanted very spicy, and that's not what my book is. And so then I kind of had
more action.
I guess it's just more of like character development and like world building. And I had one person be like, who's the villain? There's like no villain. And I'm like, the system's the villain.
I mean, there doesn't always have to be a villain. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of times there is, but or you could just be like me and take the person that's supposed to be the horrible person and villain and turn him into a good guy.
Yeah, that's always good. I like that.
It was a little twist because everything bad that she did was actually for like the greater good. So everyone thinking she's this horrible person, when things come to a certain point, I don't want to, give away too much.
No spoilers.
When this big event happens, everything she had done was to help them and to be good.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And see, that's the kind of thing that I like. I like delving into a character's mind and making it so much more complicated than, oh, there's just this good guy and this bad. Like, and that's
black
very
and white.
Yeah, that's very much what I explore in my book too, is just something that might seem like a good idea to someone is like really bad to somebody else. And it doesn't mean they're a bad person. We just see things differently and we do things differently. And so it's kind of like, and I think I just had a reviewer say that, like, it's an exploration of what does it mean to be human.
Yeah.
And that really is like what I try to, it's more about the message.
And I think you're 100% right on that message, and just understanding the world needs more understanding, more openness, more positiveness. So, now that we've talked about that a little bit, let me ask you a question. If you could bring any of your characters to life for a day, who would it be and what would you do?
I don't know. Maybe this is like a cop-out, but it would probably be Mavis, who is V is the main character vampire based off of me, and Mavis is her human love interest.
Okay.
And I don't know. I just love him so much. Obviously, I like wrote my crush. I don't know, my ultimate crush.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm wanting to go on a date with my fake made-up crush that I made up in my brain.
That's awesome.
I'd want to spend a day in LA. So the book is based in LA. I love living in LA, and just like I love eating in holes in the wall or from street vendors or going downtown and just like looking at all the shops. And
yeah,
so it would just be that kind of like city day, walking around, eating a lot of food,
just
hanging
natural.
out.
If you could sit down and write with any author, dead or alive, who would it be? Like co-author book.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I mean, I could answer this a million ways. And like, oh my gosh, this is like the best question. Like I've never been asked this, and I have like 5 different. Okay, so I'm gonna go contemporary, because this person has really influenced like my current book and the way that I write. So I am just in love with the Legendborn series.
Okay.
And Bloodmarked just came out, and like the author's Tracy Dion, and I don't remember when Legendborn was published, but I think I read it 2 or 3 years ago, and then Bloodmarked just came out last year. But her book was the first time where I read a fantasy book that also tackled race and social justice issues. And I had dreamed of doing that, but I'd never seen anybody do that. And I was like, how do I do it? Like, nobody's going to want to read a vampire book where I'm talking about like, being the author. Yeah. And then I read hers, and it was so seamlessly done. It was effortless. It's just a part of another part of the intersectionality of this character, because you have magical powers, but you also live in a world where you aren't accepted for who you are, and you're judged, and that's going to come into play no matter who you are. And so that was just such an inspiration to me.
That would definitely be cool. I feel like authors, when picking who they would sit down with, I feel like there's a lot of times I see the same ones. And so when I see somebody pick somebody different, it's always interesting. I think that we all have our favorites, and it would be so interesting to be able to sit down with them and just get to know them and write with them. And I could only imagine some of the amazing books that would come out from stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your world and your stories. Like, I mean, obviously there's vampires. Is there any other mythical creatures?
There are. They do not show up in the first book. It is going to be a 5-book series, if I'm counting right.
Okay.
I'm barely on book 2. I'm writing book 2 right now. So all mythical creatures do exist, but only vampires appear in the first one. And it's a world where humans think they're the only ones, but mythical creatures do exist. It's all hidden, and we keep our identities private so that no one tries to eradicate us. It is a queer normative world. So a world where people don't have to come out, like your sexuality or your gender just is what it is. And it's not...
People are accepting.
Yeah, people are accepting. And granted, there is still like homophobia and transphobia, because people are people, and there always is going to be. But like for the majority of, Mavis is a trans man, and V is pansexual. And like when they meet, there's this instant attraction, and there's no need for them to like be like, oh, are you, you know, like it just,
Yeah.
that's just how the world is. And it's just understood that different people are attracted to different kind of people, and like they say their pronouns like as soon as they meet somebody. Like it's just that's and it's kind of the world that I wish we could have. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna write it the way that it would be really nice if things were like this.
Less negative, less hate, more positive and open-mindedness for sure. We need that in our world.
Exactly.
I'm not just making people off saying that, but I agree completely. I understand 100%. You know, it's not how a lot of closed-minded people say it's a choice. It's not a choice. You're born the way you're born.
Yeah.
You love who you love. You're attracted to who you're attracted to. And I get that 100%.
Yeah. And I think my thing too is like, well, either way, how does it hurt you?
How is what you're doing hurting them?
Yeah, like who I am or who I love or who I'm with, that, you know, you don't have to be my friend. You don't have to even talk to me. Like, you can just go about your life and like live your life and let me live mine, kind of.
I agree completely. I agree. And that's the thing. Everyone thinks they have to be in everyone else's business all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And they have their 2 cents on it when it's not their business. So what advice would you give an aspiring writer who's just starting out on the writing journey?
Okay, my biggest one, because this is my biggest regret. Don't rush yourself and give yourself a ton of time and then even extra and buffer it. I don't know. I had my timeline and I was like, okay, I'm going to publish in August. I had this like publishing date in my head and I was like, I'm going to publish. And I don't have a publisher. I'm an indie author. Nobody's telling me this. I'm the one making myself do this. And then it comes down to the wire. And I actually, like, I had this Instagram with like this huge following. I faced homophobia in my town and I like wrote a post on it. And Instagram instantly deleted my entire account and didn't even give me a chance to save or anything. And they said that it was like spreading hate. So I lost everything. And I was literally, I think I was like a month away from publishing. I had all like my connections on there. I had people that I was going to be interviewing, like everything was gone. I was like, oh my God. And, you know, I'm crying and I'm like, I got to get it published. And I put so much pressure on myself. And like, even now there's all these typos that I keep finding in V and I'm like so embarrassed about it. I'm fixing everything so that I can like put out another version, but I don't know why I put so much pressure on myself. And I've talked to other indie authors where the same thing happened. Like I don't know, you just, like you set these dates and you get all in your head and you think like, oh, this is how it has to be done. And you see other people doing it. And so you keep pushing yourself. And so I feel like just give yourself time. And this time I'm not even announcing my publishing date for the second. And I have fans like writing like, cause it does leave on a cliffhanger. And
oh no,
when is book 2 coming out? When is book 2 coming out? And I'm like, I don't know.
When it's time. You can't really answer that always with an exact date while you're still writing it.
And I got to like chapter 12 and then noticed a huge plot hole and I had to delete the whole beginning and like start all over again. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, you know, don't worry about the pressure. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Like, take your time, do it in a way that is healthy for you. Because my mental health definitely suffered with the first one. Don't worry about dates. Like, do it when you feel comfortable, when you feel ready. That's the beauty of being an indie author, is nobody is breathing down your throat. You don't have to like make deadlines.
Okay, here's one for you.
Mm-hmm.
If your book were to be adapted into a movie or TV series, who would your dream cast be for the main characters?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I've thought of this so much. I think this is a little cliche, but I really love her. Like, wow, she's so young. Like, I know, now I'm like second guessing my picks. And I have done this before, but I don't even know all the actors' names. But I love Jenna Ortega.
Mm-hmm.
And but she needs to be older because he's 40.
I mean, they could like make her look older and still be her.
That's true.
I mean, she's got that personality.
She already does all the like like urban fantasy stuff, but I just love her so much, and I think she would be so good in that role. And then I've thought about this before, and I think the really hard thing is I would want, and see, actually, this is the hard thing too with me. I would want a Latina, autistic, queer woman to play her. Like, there are actors out there that are all these things. It's just that there's not roles being written for them. And
not all of them are probably publicly out there, or
yeah. And I would want a trans man to play Maris. Like, I would not want somebody who is dressing up for the role to be. And so I think that does make it harder. I don't know very many actors with the diversity that I ran into the book, but I feel like I know there would be people, like it would be fresh faces that nobody's seen before, and this is their debut. But I'm like trying to think of all the characters, and because everybody's and the funny thing too is a lot of the characters were made, they're people that I actually know, like they're based off of my friends, and so I'm like, well, I would want my friend to play them.
If you could time travel to any time period, what would it be and why?
This has like changed so much for me. I used to, like a long time ago, it was the Renaissance. I was like obsessed with the Renaissance time period when I was in college. Like Shakespeare was my specialty, or my emphasis.
I'm gonna have to begin to wrap up. So do you want to share anything else about your books or writing in general? V is out, Amazon, KU, Kindle. It's also in 2 independent bookstores, one in Ventura, one in Santa Barbara. I know that's really far from you. In California. There's people out there, so. All right, everyone. We want to thank our special guest for joining us today and sharing about her book. And we cannot wait to check it out and wait for the second book to be launched. Thank you so much for joining us today.